He's out of the White House, but Donald Trump remains on the national political stage. He'll speak this weekend at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. And joining us to discuss Donald Trump's role is Dallas Woodhouse of Carolina Journal. Dallas is a longtime observer and participant in conservative North Carolina politics and policy. Dallas, Donald Trump, unlike other presidents, hasn't just left and decided to sort of get off the stage. He's remaining very active.
He is. Of course, Bill Clinton never stayed quiet too long. And, I think the model ex-president is actually George W. Bush, who really did leave the stage and stay very quiet. I think it's a little early for the president to return, but he has decided to return. Apparently, he is going to announced that he believes he is the presumptive nominee for 2024 and that he is still in charge of the Republican Party. The CPAC meeting is a conservatives' red meat conference where you get the red meat of conservative politics. I suspect his message will be well received by the audience there at CPAC. Who will like his fiery message.
This makes things very interesting for anyone who wants to run for an office in 2022 or 2024. They have to decide how much do they want to be on the same side as Donald Trump, and is there any safety in putting any distance between yourself and Donald Trump?
Well, there's a couple of things, and of course, I don't know exactly what the former president's going to say, but reading some of the news articles, they said that, he sort of wanted to proclaim that he is still in charge of the party and that he is the presumptive nominee, and also talk about payback. Now, I think those things are in conflict with each other, and the payback would be to the 7 senators who voted to convict him in the impeachment trial, and the roughly 10 or so House members that voted to impeach him to begin with in this second impeachment. Well, it's interesting. Of those 7 senators, of course, North Carolina's Richard Burr is one of them, but he, along with Senator Toomey of Pennsylvania, have already announced they're not running again. Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, and Ben Sasse of Nebraska were all just reelected. Mitt Romney of Utah, if he even runs again, is not up until 2024. There is only one of those 7 senators that goes in front of the voters in 2022, and that is Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And certainly President Trump could try to defeat her in a Republican primary, but some of our sharp listeners to Carolina Journal may remember that Murkowski lost the primary 4 years ago, the last time she ran, and actually had to run an independent write-in campaign to be reelected to the United States Senate. Also of note in Alaska, they now have what we would refer to as a jungle primary, which is different than they've had in the past, and that also would benefit Lisa Murkowski. So defeating her in a primary would be particularly difficult for the former president. I guess my point is that you can try to remain the leader of a political party, and you can position yourself as perhaps a presumptive nominee, or you can try to get payback politically to those that you feel like you have wronged you. But I don't believe you can do all of those. I believe those things are at conflict, and I believe the former president at some point is going to have to make a choice. Ultimately, we have to remember something. The president got a lot of votes in 2020, but he fell short. Politics is about addition, and picking more fights in the Republican primaries and on the Republican side over the next few years will not create the addition to the party and create addition going forward to help him politically if he chooses to run again.
One interesting piece about this is that this does signal that Donald Trump does want to remain part of the Republican Party moving forward. There were some people who have been talking about perhaps there's going to be a new third major party centered around Donald Trump. It sounds as if there's going to be a third party, Donald Trump doesn't want to be part of that. He wants to be in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and I never bought into the third party because third parties break off when there are significant ideological differences. The difference between former President Trump and others in the Republican Party are mostly style and his behavior, not necessarily questions of ideology. Also, the rules are very difficult for third parties. I actually have worked on legislation here and helped to make it a little easier for third parties in North Carolina in the past, but they are still very difficult across the country. I think the mistake the former president may be making is that the president should focus on the one thing that would unite all Republicans and conservatives and possibly some of the people that left the party unhappy with his behavior or unhappy due to COVID, and that are the policies of the America First agenda. And we see Mr. Biden, President Biden, getting away from controlling the borders. I do believe that in the future, in the foreseeable future, that a Republican nominee for president and other major offices is going to have a position of controlling the borders. I think you see President Biden taking a different tact on China, whereas I think conservatives were pretty united about taking a tougher tact on China. The president's safe harbor here, where he could start to rebuild his image, maybe soften his image, which he needs to do to get back females, people in the suburbs, to sort of grow his stature even in the Republican Party, because it is taking a hit. He remains popular, but he's still taking some hits, would be to focus on the America First agenda and the policies that Mr. Biden is getting away from, not looking for revenge. And, one of the issues the president has always had is making it personal to him. He did that in the election. He made much of the election a referendum on him rather than a choice between him and former President Biden. So the president's coming back on the stage, but I think eventually he will have to make a choice about being a leader of a movement, which is really about the policies of the American First agenda, or getting political payback and trying to hold the grips of a political party, irrespective of what the policy prescriptions are. But policy really, I believe, is the way to go for Mr. Trump.
So it sounds as if you were writing the speech that Donald Trump's going to give at CPAC, you would have him talk about many of the same things that he talked about when he was initially on the campaign trail in 2015 and 2016, the things that were designed to help make America great again. That's right.
And I would, again, I would probably not be doing this as early. I think it's sort of like when you're a young teenager and you're trying to court a young lady, you sometimes learn, not to be around so much, let them miss you a little bit. I think the president ought to let voters miss him a little bit, but nevertheless, I would get back to contrasting the policy differences that we have seen early on in the Biden administration and what the Trump administration done. I think one of the frustrating things as a conservative already has been that there are massive changes into on our border. There are massive changes into likely coming in our tax structure, raising of the minimum wage, and those things aren't getting the attention because we're continuing to talk about the impeachment and political payback and sort of the future and the discussions of what's going to happen to the Republican Party and all this kind of stuff that is on the periphery, when really what is going to make the difference between Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, are the bold differences in policy, the bold colors, as Ronald Reagan said, in policy going forward. And, that is ultimately what got Donald Trump elected the first time, was good policy. And my advice to him would be to get back to that.
One person who's going to be watching very closely as all of these events unfold is Dallas Woodhouse of Carolina Journal, longtime observer and participant in conservative North Carolina politics and policy. Dallas, thanks so much.
Thank you.